We are back and better than ever for this episode of DTNsights. I have brought in, I believe I described you guys as a couple of yahoos earlier, but actually two gentlemen that I really respect. We have Brad Nelson. Your official title is a solution engineer here for the weather sector at DTN. And Kevin Mahoney Jr., you lead our risk communicator team here at DTN. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for joining again on DTNsights.
Absolutely. Yeah, glad to be on. This is gonna be awesome.
Now today's episode is way different than many that we've talked about in the past. We are going to talk about the art and the love of storm chasing. All three of us are storm chasers, though I'm going to let you two guys be the center of conversation today. But storm chasing, I think I always describe, a lot of people ask me about storm chasing and, is it like the movie Twist, or is it as Hollywood as what you see on TV? And those moments do exist from time to time in real life, but storm chasing it's almost a culture in its own right. The whole experience of storm chasing is a really fun one, ranging from eating some pretty terrible gas station food, sitting in a car, driving really long distances. The actual chasing of a storm is a pretty small amount of time of the actual activity of storm chasing. So we'll kind of get into all of that. I'm going to start, Kevin, with you. What got you into storm chasing, the activity, let alone just being interested in weather, but what kind of made you want to get started as a storm chaser, and when did that begin for you?
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, it kind of ties in hand in hand when I was going into, just meteorology in general as a kid, watch all the tornado videos, tornado video classics, volume 1, 2, and I believe 3. They were on the VHS. I think they showed up on PBS sometimes, or the old Weather Channel in its heyday.
Kevin, is the Shirley Where's My Pants video on one of those classes from Nebraska?
No, that was in 1998, so it was a little after that. That's probably one of my favorite storm chase videos. But so I always had an interest in it. But I never really did it until I started going to college, kind of get a couple of classes, kind of get some confidence to go, you know what, just go ahead and do it. So I kept it pretty local 2010 through about 2012. And then in 2013, decided it was a big moderate day. The semester had just finished. And me and a couple friends were just decided, you know what, we're going to Kansas. We're going to go see a tornado. And so we went down and got our first tornado on May 18th, 2013 out in Roselle, Kansas, southwest Kansas, just northeast of Dodge City there. And, beautiful and just exciting and kind of mesmerizing, just all at the same time. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Brad, how about you? What got you started in storm chasing, and what were your beginnings like?
Yeah, I really started as a kid. I was always interested in weather growing up on the farm, in southern Minnesota. It was like every decision we're making and just day-to-day life was always impacted by storms every summer. And we had flooding issues and winter weather. And we'd see storms roll in and I'd be out at the corn crib behind the barn and mom's yelling at me to get in the house, or I'm going to come out there and chew you one. And she, I'd stay out there as long as I can and watch storms come in. I really got into it though, into actually storm chasing in college, much like Kevin. It was one of these things where I was always kind of intrigued by it. Severe storms in general, thunderstorms, tornadoes, and everything that comes along with that. But there were two awesome ladies in my meteorology classes, and they were called the Twister Sisters back in the day. Very good friends of mine, Melanie Metz, Peggy Willenberg, and they invited me along on a chase, and it ended up, being one of the biggest outbreaks in that early 2000s decade. Actually, the infamous June 24th, 2003 Manchester tornado that wiped the town of Manchester, South Dakota, unfortunately, off the planet. We went out on saw on a different storm near Centerville, South Dakota, and ended up chasing this storm, seeing 13 tornadoes that day. My first real storm chase. At one point, there were 2 tornadoes on the ground and 2 funnel clouds at the same time on one storm, and I was hooked. After that, it was like, this is like something I really want to do. A few years later, in 2007, I was invited to be on the Twister Sisters reality show, which is on WeTV, as a cast member, and that was really neat being part of a show and storm chasing for about a month and a half, and we really saw quite a bit of weather on that, filming that show. And after that, I've been chasing really since 2007, very, very regularly, every year.
So you go back, we'll get into what storm chasing today is like, but Brad, the question for you, those early days of storm chasing in 2007, what was the equipment like that you had available? The iPhone, I don't believe, was invented at that time, probably close to at that point, but what were some of the normal pieces of equipment you would use to stay on top of the storms and where you were going?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. It was very, you really had to use intuition, knowledge, and a lot more visual from back in that day. Like, what are the clouds doing? What can you see through the haze on the horizon? Can you see a base? Can you see the warm front, actually? Because a lot of times you cross that warm front and you're in stratus, and then all of a sudden there's cumulus and it heats up, and you're like, this is the front. Let's sit here, right? There's more of those personal observations, visuals. And you all know the quote from the original Twister, don't roll the maps. There's a crease right through Wichita. We used paper maps, really, is how we first started, mapping out our route, watching road signs. And we did not have radar in the car. We did have, a way to get satellite internet and radar at the time, but it was very basic and very slow and very expensive. So you only used it when you were pretty desperate at that point. And really what we would do is go into small towns, go to the public library and log into their computers to view data and get the SPC Storm Prediction Center update. I remember stopping in the middle of the Mission, South Dakota library in the middle of the day just to get data. And, the librarian there was one computer, and she charged us like $1 to use it for an hour or something like that. But that was really it. You used what you had, and it was a lot more difficult, and it took a lot more experience and meteorology behind it, because you had to use really visually and what you were seeing and what you were feeling out there to get a good sense of where you're at and where storms are going to develop.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say my first full storm chase year where I did a month on the plains was 2005, and I think you were talking about, it was called the Barron ThreatNet, was the tool where you actually use Sirius XM satellite puck, and the data was just a blob on a screen. But boy, that was really valuable, blobs on a screen to tell you that there's at least a storm there. You didn't really know what was going on inside of it. The other tool, you'd look at flags and say, okay, I think that flag is pointing out of the southeast, which is a favorable surface wind. And then you look up above and see the clouds streaming more out of the south or the southwest. You're like, I got some wind shear here. I mean, it was really you're one with the atmosphere. Back in the day, you couldn't just look at a phone and see, oh, it's coming at me, right? And there was something romantic about that, of rolling into a tiny town and just finding data. It was kind of a fun time. Sorry, Kevin, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, all good. I was just going to mention, you brought up the paper maps, and I still used mine 2 weeks ago. And for the Truman tornado, I pulled it out, southern Minnesota. I said, I'm on this route, and I got to go this way and follow that. Simple's better sometimes.
I always joked, I think Rand McNally was one of the first storm chasers ever, right? Made a heck of a map for all of us. So let's describe what a storm chase day is like today. Some of the tools you use, the process you use. It's just not as simple as you just drive out there and see a tornado. It's actually a pretty complicated process to get it right. And we'll be blunt in saying Brad's first day of seeing 13 tornadoes is not normal. You usually spend a lot of busted forecasts and missing the storm by a few minutes. And It's actually very hard to see a tornado. But Kevin, I'll start with you. What's a chase day process like for you?
Usually my first go-to, and it still is to this day, I still go right to the Storm Prediction Center and read those forecast discussions. Especially he's since retired, but like Roger Edwards was one of my favorite because it was so meticulous and detailed. And after he retired, I saw him at the Storm Chase Conference, last year, 2 years ago, and I thanked him for that because I learned so much. But I start there, like, okay, what's the assessment, and then go into the models. Assess where everything's at, see where the obs are, what's the satellite look like in the morning. Did my forecast from last night where I think my target's going to be, did that change based on the observations? And especially day of, it's all observations. I maybe look at a model or two, a quick look at the HER, but otherwise it's surface obs, satellite, and radar, and that's all I'm just looking at and just finding where that trigger point's going to be. And then once you get into chase mode or the chase day, got the radar scope app right there on my phone or on the laptop if I happen to bring it with, or the iPad, and you just kind of go to that target. And if you're there early enough, you're fortunate enough to maybe get a lunch or a couple all-sips burritos or anything like that, or hit the Loves, hang out. And usually, if there's a Loves, I'll reference Scott City, Kansas, because it's really the only thing in town. Everybody goes there. And so then you hang out with your friends and other storm chasers and meteorologists, or sometimes you run into Howie Bluestein and whatever he's cooking up for research and everything and catch up. And then once it's go mode, then you go. And from there, it's a little radar, a lot of visual, and go out and have fun. So,
Brad, how about you? What's I'm sure very similar for you, but what's kind of the method to your madness?
Yeah, it's very, Kevin and I chase together, so we have kind of the same madness that goes on. But yeah, overall, it's like, leading up to it, you're looking at stuff 7 to 10 days out. You see a big trough, you're kind of getting more confidence as you get towards the event that something's going to happen. And then you got to pull that trigger either the night before or the morning of, and you get down to the target, looking at models, looking at the computer models every, especially the short-term models on the day of. I'm looking at every update. What are the short-term models? These models that are showing high-resolution storms. Where are they going to be? Are they still kind of locked in on my target area? And really, we can lock in like down to a county, down to a town of where we want to go that day, and you just keep going there until something changes your mind. One rule of storm chasing for me is like, if you stop at a target area and you can't make a decision on where to go, or you're not confident, just stay there until something changes, right? Until storms develop or the models change enough where you got confidence. But yeah, really the one of the things I really like about storm chasing is not even the storms itself, it's the travel and just being out there with a chase partner, a couple people, and just seeing the plains and all these small towns, these back roads, visiting these little cafes and diners, and just these hole-in-the-wall places or gas stations with like nunchucks you can buy. I mean, it's like random stuff that you run into. And that's one of the cool parts of it is you drive, like this past weekend, I drove 2,200 miles. Didn't see a lot of great storms, saw some storms, but we still had a great time because we were just enjoying our company and talking to strangers, hearing their stories, and just seeing things in places you never thought you'd go.
Yeah, when you're setting a target, and so for people not familiar with this, like, you guys live in the Minneapolis metro area, and you might be going chasing in western Kansas, and you've probably got a head start before the day of to get down there. But when we talk about a target, that's kind of your base camp for the day to get things going, where you sort of sit, you can chill, you might throw a frisbee or a ball, you're hanging out, as you mentioned, grab a Allsup's burrito. Allsup's is not a sponsor of the show. They should be. If you've never had an Allsup's burrito, you're not a storm chaser. Be clear. But when you think about target, talk about the rationale behind that. Are you trying to set up where you think the storm is going to form, or do you allow yourself a little grace and maybe set up 30 miles east of there and let the storm start to kind of evolve before you lock in on the one that's going to be your dance partner for the day?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like to start. My target is really where, for me, I want to set up for the day, and a lot of times that is, like you said, maybe 20, 30 miles to the east of the storm, just to give you a little buffer, because you don't know sometimes if it's that storm is going to form essentially further west or if it's going to be further east, but you want to be out ahead of it. The one thing you don't want to do is add initiation or have initiating storms and you're already behind, because once you're behind, usually you're always behind. You're always trying to play catch up. So you give yourself a little buffer, a little conservative grace on like being ahead of the storm already. So a lot of times, target area, we'll pick like a county where we think storms will form, and we'll set up shop in the next county over. And the road network has a big deal, kind of a big influence on that too. You want to set up where you have the intersection of 4 roads that are good roads. You can go any direction out of there, so it won't take time if the forecast is off, for example. So that's kind of where I target usually.
Logistics is such an underrated aspect of the success of storm chasing. We've all been river screwed, I'll use the word,
Yes.
where a river gets in the way, or you end up, if you're in Texas and a storm starts rolling towards the Dallas metro, you're in trouble. You don't want to be storm chasing in the metroplex, and logistics are there. Kevin, what are some of the best? You mentioned radar scope before. What are the tools you use today to help you navigate logistically? You mentioned paper maps as well. Are there any other tools that you like to use that help keep you safe? There's an aspect of making sure that you're safe as you're doing this, for sure. What are some of those tools that you use today?
Yeah, I always, I still like using the paper maps because it's stable no matter what. Now, paper maps are not necessarily as high res as you'd like. What's great is your mapping app, your Google Maps, maybe your Apple Maps. If you zoom in, you can get some of those fine county roads. A lot of times the morning of, if I know it's already going to be kind of a tricky area, get into western Kansas or the Sandhills in Nebraska, I've even chased in the woods of northern Minnesota, is okay, where do these roads go? And try to get myself a mental picture of where those roads are. What are the major roads that I need to work through? Are there any county roads that I'm aware of? And then also checking out the state's 511 page. Is there any road construction, road closures, all those things? Is there previous flooding from the other day that closed that road? I'm doing that kind of all in the morning, get myself a mental picture. Okay, I know Southwest Kansas, US 54 is closed from here to here. Now I'm going to have to pivot today, even though the storms are going to be in there. So I'm not going to maybe I don't target that area, or I just be aware of like, okay, think 3 steps ahead of where the storm is tracking and what road I'm going to go into. I'm kind of lucky. I always liked the paper maps. I always learned since I was 3 years old. Like I could tell you how to get to California and what highways you needed to, because I just always loved maps. So getting that mental picture for myself always helps me. And I know when I talked to Brad, if you're navigating, or I had Kyle here last couple of weeks, is give me the roads that are a couple spots ahead, and I keep a mental picture, keep us safe as I'm driving us down the road, of knowing where it needs to be. Then you guys don't have to look at the maps anymore, right? So it's always that first right away in the morning. Where am I, and what roads are going to be affected that I might need to take? So
yeah, with storm chasing has become exceptionally popular. I think there are a couple landmark moments that have dramatically changed its popularity. Twister being the first one in the late 90s. The second Twister movie, I think, brought another surge of people to it. The iPhone and the apps that are available to us have made it far more accessible, because it's kind of easy to see the data available today. And then social media has made it really popular. It's darn near every storm is documented today. How have you seen all aspects of storm chasing change as the popularity has grown of it as an activity over time? Brad, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I was gonna say where to start.
It's a lot different now, storm chasing, and the what you're trying to get out of it. There's a lot of like different intentions nowadays, I think, or different like reasons why people chase. Back, when I first started, it was a lot about like more about the science and calling in the reports, you know, to the National Weather Service, and a lot about, there's still a lot of this too, where you're trying to help the National Weather Service alert people in the path of these storms, especially if there's not a warning on a severe thunderstorm or a tornado warning, and you're watching this tornado come down. You know, I still call in those situations to make sure that the warnings are issued timely and that there's ground truth visuals of that they know that I'm there as a meteorologist, as a storm chaser, and this is what I'm seeing. Right, gives them confidence to issue the warning and where downstream. It's really evolved into a lot more chasers now, a lot more chaser traffic. Chaser convergence is what we call it, and it can get downright dangerous when it comes to the driving aspect of it. I'm not actually the most dangerous part now of storm chasing isn't lightning. It's not a tornado. It is traffic. It's other chasers. It is the general public that are out there joining the conga lines of people trying to see these storms. And you really got to be careful. A lot of times give yourself a little more distance from a storm so that you're not in the direct path of a dangerous situation and stuck in the line of traffic. So it's more about, like, there's a lot more people on the road and a lot more interest, and there's a lot more of the extreme chasing now, where in the past, you know, we were just out there to kind of see storms. If we see a tornado from a distance, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 miles away, that's great. Like, we don't need to get closer. Now everyone seems to be with social media and trying to monetize it a little bit more, and for attention. There's a lot of thrill seekers out there that are trying to get as close to the tornado or even in the tornado, which is crazy, to get the best footage and get the best story and show that they, for some reason, are the most extreme chaser on the planet, for example. So there's just a lot of that going on right now. And that's just been the evolution, right? Due to the interest, the movies, and just the rise in demand.
And pushing the boundaries. And I still think the sexiest video and photo is from a couple miles away, where you see the entire storm structure. You see the entire mesocyclone rotating, and might even see the mamadas out to the side, and you can see the hail core over, you know, maybe to the right of the storm, and actually see the storm in motion. That's what I like about it, is to take your textbook version of meteorology and it's there in real life, and I can see how it all interacts together. I don't think the video where it's just dusty and there's stuff hitting a window is cool. I don't
shake it.
It's not that cool.
Like, what is this?
So
I don't even know what's going on.
My personal preference is the wider shot in general.
Yeah. I like to, my line is like, get relatively close and shoot wide with your wide angle and try to get whole storm, hit the whole storm, the whole mesocyclone with a tornado underneath, or it doesn't even need to be a tornado. Some of the greatest shots I've ever taken of storms and that I have on my wall at home are just mothership supercells out in the middle of western Kansas or Oklahoma with a just incredible scenery in front of me. And that's, to me, just more of a visually striking, kind of blows me away. Yeah,
I sort of like to picture when I'm out there, because you know, there's the proper storm chasing country, or probably the best storm chasing country, kind of has a western feel to it. You're sort of on the western Great Plains, and you kind of I think back in the day of cowboys. I think of like some of the early, you know, explorers going through the Oregon Trail and all this. Can you imagine rolling up on one of these, you know, mothership supercells out on the Great Plains, and you're on a horse, and you're just like
dropping softball size hail.
Yeah, what's going on here? That's what I like to picture when I'm out there. It's like, and when you talk about the crazy traffic patterns, it's such a turnoff to me. There's been times I've seen a tornado by myself. Like, that's pretty cool, right? And now it's it takes a little bit of love out of it. And you might even make chase decisions today to avoid the traffic. Like, can I get on the less appealing storm radar right now and maybe get a little lucky, and that it'll turn into the one later, and where everybody else is on the other one. it's really fascinating to kind of watch how this hobby has unfolded. Switching gears a little bit, Kevin, your day job, the reason you're with DTN is to provide weather risk intelligence to customers that are operating. They may not want to see the storms that we, that we're talking about, like hobby chasing here. How has chasing made you better at your job? Like, how has storm chasing turned into an advantageous aspect of the way that you communicate to customers in your daily job?
It really helps to associate what's actually out there versus what you see on radar and the alert products and everything else. There's a lot of, outdoor live events I'll go work, even if it's on site or remote, but, got one coming up here pretty soon on site, and where you can look at the clouds and go, yeah, it's just gonna be a rain shower. I'm not worried about it building into anything else. You maybe already have the forecast environment and the confidence that, hey, we're probably not gonna have a thunderstorm, but I can look outside and I go, yeah, that's not gonna be anything. Or vice versa is, hey, we have an environment that's prime. Now I can go out and watch this, get an assessment even before the radar is picking up, because again, the radar is delayed, satellite's delayed. I can see this building going, hey guys, we need to start thinking about this. I can point out the cloud for them versus the radar that they're seeing. And so it kind of culminates everything kind of together, and just being able to understand of what's actually going on and associate that with what you're seeing in the products to what's out actually in the atmosphere. So
yeah, absolutely. Brad, how about you? When you've how has storm chasing brought this weather to life for you as you communicate with customers and get them into great solutions?
Well, it definitely made me a better forecaster, that's for sure. And also a better communicator of risk too. So you're, talking to our customers every day, and I'm going through my head trying to figure out, what's going to happen with this thunderstorm cell that's going to directly impact me, and then explain that to my chase partner at the time, or my mother back home who's worried sick about me and doesn't like what I'm doing, right? So just that I would say the whole communication aspect. And then, I've done over 16 years of working on site with a PGA Tour and, other major outdoor events where you are partly responsible for communicating risk to evacuate 50,000 people. That is pressure, right? And when you for me, being in high pressure storm chasing situations where really my own safety and everyone around me was in, kind of at risk, we had to really kind of that. I mean, that's pressure. You have to be calm, cool, collected, and just having that demeanor to work through those kind of high intensity situations helped me in my job as my role working with our customers later on. And through my whole career, I would say.
Yeah, I think one of the other interesting things too, and those are awesome answers. To me, it's helped me to kind of personify weather or describe it in a really interesting way. If you think of a shelf cloud, for example, I don't need to necessarily say this thunderstorm's approaching in 10 minutes, but I'm like, you see that long line of clouds right there. When that gets over the top of you, the wind is going to switch directions, get really strong, get cool quick, and then the rain will quickly follow. You learn those types of how to look and translate into what a person's going to actually experience in such a unique way. And so I think there's so many benefits to this. Okay, we're going to do a couple of quick questions here on sort of your background. Number one, I'll start with you, Kevin. Do you know how many tornadoes you've seen at this point? Are you keeping tabs?
I slowed down on keeping tabs. I think I'm probably in the low mid 50s right now. I'm 1 for 1 this year, so I'm happy with that right now, and hopefully I can get out some more. But I'm probably in the mid 50s.
Yeah, that's awesome. Brad, how about you? Do you have a count?
157 is what I'm at. That's what I'm at right now.
Yes, you have a count going. Very specific.
I do. I don't know if it's exact. I try to keep up with it, but it's got to be a very close estimation.
There are days where you don't know if you saw 3 or 6, right?
Exactly.
There's cycles, and it gets really confusing. We could probably all triple our number if we wanted to do it. I'm at 60. I crossed over 60 with one we're actually going to watch here in a little bit that you guys were both on as well. Okay, yeah. Kevin, best tornado you've seen? Like, what's the one, if you put at the top of the bio, that you'd be like, that's the one I love?
That's a tough one. Okay, best one is probably the Waverly, Nebraska tornado. That's actually right behind me, just outside of Lincoln. We ended up seeing 5 that day, Brad and I. My all-time favorite though was Northwest Minnesota, September 19th, 2014. All by myself, no radar, no map, because I didn't have smartphone or nothing. And I left my apartment after class. I saw the storm coming out of Canada. I drove north to Drayton. I went east to Karlstad, and there it was. It was right there. I just worked out. I just looked at the radar, left the apartment, nothing else, and visual chase. That was my favorite. I was all by myself. Nobody else saw it. Called the weather service, and that was it.
Awesome. Brad, how about you?
Yeah, mine's really easy. It's the July 8th, 2020 Ashby, Minnesota EF4 tornado. That was actually the exact 100 of my chasing career, actually. And it was my favorite one. That was a day where it was completely unexpected. The Storm Prediction Center had a 5% risk on a warm front in northern Minnesota. We weren't even debating. My chase partner, Melanie, who, I was talking about earlier, we're debating even going. Is this even worth it? Models aren't really doing much, but could break out a few storms. We ended up going up there to near Fergus Falls, Alexandria, Minnesota, up I-94. And this, we stopped for seriously 15 minutes at the gas station just to fill up and grab a bite to eat. And the storm exploded about 5 miles to our south. We were on it right away. And within 30 minutes, it was already producing a tornado. And it ended up producing a 40-some minute long EF4 tornado that was only moving at like 10 miles an hour or less. Oh. We actually drove right up. We drove right up to it, and got a look at the tornado just churning. And the lighting was incredible. This beautiful gray white contrast. And we're not even in the rain. The sun's shining on us, and just over the edge of the trees, 0.2 miles away, is the roar of this EF4 just churning everything up. And you could actually smell the earthy kind of smell of the trees and the dirt and everything being thrown in the air. And that's a really unique smell, that earthy kind of smell from a strong tornado like that. It's really unique. Once you smell it, you're like, yeah, this was tornado debris.
Yeah.
Followed right behind it and for 40 minutes. And it was just, that one, you can't top that one. It's
one of those where it feels like easy, right? You're like, oh, this is easy. It's barely moving. It's beautiful. I'm right here. I just slowly track along with it. And that's not how this goes normally. But that's awesome. Okay. Final question before we get into some cool tornado videos. Kevin, what's the one that you just missed that you wish you were like right by? And that's not to end on a sour note, but
there's many I've missed. I think the one that I still think about, and we were talking about the other day, was the Wayne, Nebraska tornado on October 3rd, 2013. It was a large group of us. I actually had another group of friends that saw the tornado. They went after and targeted that area. Again, I was with a group of friends. I didn't have smartphones at that time. They did a little bit, so I kind of feeling off them, driving my car, and we decided to play, Western Iowa and stay on the correct side, or what we thought was the correct side of the Missouri River. As we were talking before, it's like that river doesn't have very many crossings. So we decided to play, more of the eastern target, and our friends ended up going up to the Wayne, and that was a 1.5 mile wide EF4 that trekked pretty long through the town and to the north, but was visual. Usually those big wedge tornadoes, not really visual, but this was, quite stunning. So that one I still kind of kick myself on if we had made a better call or looked at the forecast, and we ended up seeing nothing. We just hung out in Omaha then that day. So
nice. Brad, how about you?
Clearly it was last year, the 2025 Wellfleet, Nebraska tornado in June 16th, lasted 45 minutes and traveled a whopping 3 miles. It was one of the tornadoes of the year. last year, and I was out in Deadwood, South Dakota that morning with my family, actually chasing with my wife and my children who love to go watch storms and the whole experience of storm chasing. We debated going down there. We had to be back to Minnesota the next day. There was actually a risk in Minnesota that day as well. So we kind of split hairs and chased a supercell that developed in Norfolk, Nebraska, down to Omaha area. Wasn't all that great as we're watching my friends send me pictures of this incredible, like, beautiful tornado that they sat there for an hour and watched.
Didn't move.
Didn't even move. The Constellation, look that tornado up, June 16, 2025, Wellfleet, Nebraska, and look at the photos. And it is one of the most beautiful photos of tornadoes I've ever seen in my life. Constellation Prize was chasing the Gary, South Dakota tornado last year with me and just my kids. And I got pictures of them, my kids, in front of this amazing tornado. So nice. Not all was lost. Yeah.
Well, mine was the Joplin F5. I was in far southeast Kansas that day, and then we saw that storm start to move up I-44, and I was like, oh my god, that thing looks really good. And so we ended up right on its rear flank, I mean immediately behind, and that thing was pretty rain wrapped, so I didn't necessarily miss out on much, but we were minutes behind it and came across the destruction, which was horrific. And saw semis flipped, and that smell you talk about, Brad, I smelled it kind of after the fact. It was horrible. So I'm kind of thankful I missed it, but I was literally just a few miles behind it the whole time and couldn't really get around in front. And then that's one of those in retrospect, I'm really glad that I was not in front of. That was really, really bad tornado, but right there, did not see it. So that happened.
My friends, run a storm chasing tour business. We're right in front of that tornado, trying to get through Joplin, through all the stoplights and everything as it was bearing down on them. And they almost took shelter in that Home Depot that got absolutely destroyed in Joplin. And thankfully they kept going and got south to the interstate just in time for the tornado to pass behind them. So they barely made it unscathed.
Awesome. Well, we promised some tornado video, so we are going to show some and just kind of talk through. I think I've got the volume low enough here. Brad, okay. I believe this
is it. This is the Ashby Dalton EF4 that we were essentially able to drive right up to in 2020. The tornado formed about 3 miles south of this road, and we just watched it come slowly up to the road on our east route. And so essentially we're able to safely drive behind the tornado right up to it as it was unfortunately taken out like a machine shop here and like a small farm, but it was not a populated farm. It was more of like outbuildings and machinery. But this was like its strongest point as it turned into an EF4 right before our eyes with all the debris. I mean, it's right on the other side of this line of trees. And we could get out and the sun was shining on us like this with the contrast of the white tornado and the real dark debris being thrown everywhere. And you could hear that roar, just that. There's not too many tornadoes in my life where you hear the roar and you smell the, what it's churning up. And this was like one of those experiences. It's only been a handful of times here where I've had that type of experience with a tornado.
Unbelievable. I mean,
yeah.
How far away are you from? You said 0.2 miles. Is that right?
0.2 miles. Probably a couple football fields, really. Like 2 or 3 football fields in front of us. It was moving right to left, and this was safe. I mean, we were behind it. We were southwest of it. Tornadoes just don't magically change direction 90 degrees or 180 degrees immediately, right? It's an evolution of a tornado. So essentially you're able to get out of the way if for some reason something happens. But most tornadoes move, southwest to northeast with the storm, or they might move due west to east. And very, very rarely will you have a tornado progress from northwest or northeast to southwest. The infamous Gerald tornado in Texas was one of them that was an EF5 that moved southwest. Yeah.
Usually at the tail end of it, right, as the tornado's ending, it's almost like all that force comes out of it and it kind of rips to the north. It'll sort of do a hook to the left at the end. I think people will say, well, what about like the El Reno tornado? And that was actually just the tornado expanded. And so the tornado expanded so fast that it appears as though it was moving at like 150 miles per hour. It wasn't. It was just the wind field and the tornado went from a mile to about 2.5 miles like instantly. And that's where it can get scary, is when the tornado expands. And sort of as we always say, there's the you have to be super aware of your surroundings. And if it looks like it's getting bigger, it's probably coming at you, right?
Yeah.
That
was the scariest
you have.
That was by far the scariest storm chasing experience of my life, was the El Reno tornado.
Oh.
So we were northeast of it, and it expanded from 1 mile to 2.6 miles, the widest tornado in history. And it sped up from 20 to 40 miles per hour and changed direction all at the same time. So
crazy.
You're right. It got bigger and bigger and started speeding up. And we realized we thought we had enough time, and we did, but we not as much as I'm comfortable with, right?
Yep.
Kevin, you talk about Lincoln.
We'll wrap up with this one. I know both of you guys were on this storm in Lincoln, Nebraska, just outside of Lincoln, Nebraska. I live in Lincoln, Nebraska, and was also on this storm, probably just to the left of you guys here.
Yeah, this was a good one. We right as we were getting to the target into Lincoln, the tornado hadn't produced yet, and we knew it was. It just had that look, and so we got ourselves in position, kind of northeast of town there, and we were kind of like right underneath like the hook. So if you know what that hook echo is, we were kind of right underneath of it, and the tornado itself is to the southeast of us. We were right actually on the edge of the hail core there. We were starting to get a couple of the golf balls, and got the couple shiners on the old Escape as we were going through, and actually a little further north with some baseballs. So we were a little close for the hail for my comfort. But this thing was pretty slow moving, nice, safe, at least from a viewing standpoint. And I know later on, as this was ripping out, it produced a second one and then a third one kind of up the chain as it continued to track off, and eventually became, I think, the Elkhorn, Nebraska storm that produced that big tornado. And by that point we had already moved on. But yeah, nice, slow again. And you mentioned, actually, this is really good from a safety standpoint. If you see a tornado, and as you mentioned, if it's getting larger, it's probably coming towards you. But if you sit and watch and just see which way is it moving, is it moving right to left, left to right? And then you can go perpendicular from that. You can drive away from these things if you just kind of slow down, see where it is. If it's coming towards you, you got to drive perpendicular or get away from it, because they'll be getting bigger. So
I think the cool thing, if you allow yourself to watch this screen and watch how everything is being pulled towards the middle, right? You can see the left-hand side of the screen, everything kind of sucking back in towards it, and then the right hand, everything moving from right to left. It's that's the kind of stuff I notice in person, is just how it's just the atmosphere is really in motion, right? All at the same time. The other interesting thing about this day, and you talk about safety, Kevin, was look how clear it is around this tornado. Like the visuals on this day, you could see this tornado from 10 miles away easily, and from any direction. It didn't matter what direction you were around this, you were going to see the tornado. There was really nothing blocking it. No rain all that nearby.
Yeah, it's kind of really abnormal. Actually, like photogenic tornadoes like this are pretty abnormal. Usually it's shrouded in rain. You get the rain into the rear flank downdraft, which, kind of helps spin up the tornado, right? And usually it's all rain, and once it gets rain wrapped, it's done. You can't really see anything. This one stayed visual the entire way, and all the tornadoes all day were big visual. I call them classic supercells, or even borderline low precipitation supercells, because you just didn't have any of the rain around the tornado. So pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's on the far right of the screen, you can see the hook echo precipitation finally starting to catch up to it. It's pretty pretty amazing. So yeah, that was a pretty remarkable day. I believe a ton of tornadoes in Nebraska, and then quite a few across the river in Iowa, in western Iowa that day. A pretty prolific outbreak. I think we just crossed the 2-year anniversary of that day just a few days ago. Pretty prolific. Well, guys, that was a lot of fun. It's always fun to sit around. Normally we would do it with a couple of adult beverages and just tell stories from the road, but it'd be a fun episode to give everybody a look behind, what goes into storm chasing. You can see Brad's changed his name to Brad NATO here, as he's known in the storm chasing world, which is awesome. But congratulations to both of you guys on your successes. And I know you're both big proponents of doing it safely, which we're going to always shout from the rooftop, because it can be dangerous if you're trying to quote unquote 0 meter a tornado and get yourself in trouble. And you guys do it the right way. So really appreciate that as well. All right. That is it for this episode of DT Insights. Again, Kevin, Brad, thank you so much for joining us. And thanks to everybody for watching. Hope you have a great day.